Hi everyone, it's Anna McBride. Welcome back to She Asked. This show explores topics of growth, healing, and recovery, offering tips and guidelines to help you along your personal journey. Today I'll be sharing with you my journey that's very pressing and transformative at this time, as I am literally in transition back to my maiden name. What's in a name? How does your name shape your identity? What does your nickname mean? What does the family name mean? All of these are things that we'll be talking about today in this show about changing your name. I want to start with telling you about my family. I grew up one of 7 girls, a family of 11, with an immigrant mother and father, and the family name was very important. I had 4 brothers, and they, of course, keep their name when they get married. But when it came to the girls and we were older, there was this thing about, do you change your name to your husband's name or do you keep it? And I was the third one married in my family. So I had 2 older sisters, 4 or 5 years older than me, that got married ahead of me. And they opted to change their name to their husband's name. And then they kept the family name as a part of it, almost either hyphenated in one case, and the other case became a middle name. And I thought about it and I thought about it and I struggled with it. And I decided to keep my family name as a part of my changed name. First, I thought about hyphenating it, which I did, and that got complicated because putting our 2 names together was a mouthful. And then I decided to take out the hyphen and make it my middle name. So from there on, my married name was Anna McBride, and then my married name. And for 36 years plus, I've carried that name. And here's what happens when you get married. You become your husband's last name. I don't know how you feel about that, but that's been my experience. Like, I was known as being attached to my husband and everything that went along with that. We had 3 children. Of course, they had his last name. And I argued with him and got 2 of our children to take my maiden name as their middle name. And that was quite a struggle, but I fought for that. That being said, who was I? I was slowly and surely losing my identity as Anna McBride and becoming Anna attached to this man with a different last name than mine. 3 years ago, I divorced. We divorced. And since then, I have been working on myself to prepare to get ready to change your name. Because here's the thing, your name is attached to everything. Your social security, your license, your passport, your bank accounts, your tax filings, and that's just 5 things. Credit cards. There's a lot of legal things that need to be attended to when you change your name. And I began the process of figuring out, how do you go about changing your name and in what order? And this took me on a bit of a journey recently because, as I mentioned, my mother was an immigrant and we had dual citizenship with her country, and I had to go to the embassy of her country to get documentation of my birth and my citizenship and her citizenship and the passport in order to change my name. It was a process. It took me to DC last week to do. And why did I wait till last week? Since I've been divorced for 3 years, there were other things I had to attend to. There were tax filings. There was other financial things I had to get settled from our divorce in order for me to be legally allowed to do it. And that just got completed last month. So I have been working on this, it seems like forever, and yet it's been a real important thing for me to reclaim who I am, who I was before I got married, who I want to become after that marriage is over, and who I want to retain from that life for sake of our children and the connections that we had. These are incredible questions. I know that what is in a name, that's a big question for me, because I have friends and family that said, why change your name? It's such a pain in the ass. Why do it? And then I thought about it and I thought, I want to be who I've always been, which is Anna. I've always been Anna McBride. And so this process of changing back to reclaim who I was, I am, and who I want to remain being or reclaim and become, this is a very emotional process. It's hard to describe just how emotional it is, because part of it is a bit of letting go, and a part of it is a remembering who I was before I let myself get lost. So this process of changing my name has allowed me to come back. And it's interesting, I'm feeling emotional right now because it's meaningful. Names have meaning. Numerology even accounts for our name. Every letter in your name has a numeric value according to numerology. So if we use our alphabet as the number chart, 1 through 26, every letter has a value. And so if you just write out your birth name, and mine that I was born with was Anna Marie McBride, add all the numeric values up. For me, it's the number 6. And when you calculate this, it's interesting to learn what that number means. And for me, I'm meant to be a healer. It means that I'm grounded in wisdom. It means that I am at the center of a family formation. And I happen to be the middle child. So how did numerology know that? I think that's very interesting. And maybe some people might think it's contrived. However, I find it very compelling, because I've always felt like my role in my family was to be the center, to be the grounding force. And in my married family, I did the same thing. I helped hold us together. I helped raise our children. I helped my ex-husband broaden his career and get that going. I was of service early in my life, and I continue to be that way. And the name Anna also happens to mean grace. And I've always felt like I've been guided by a sense of grace. I've been afforded grace in my life. And I think the grace is what's bringing me back home to myself. And at my true sense of self, I was always somebody who was curious, was free, and also very family oriented. And my family of Orient is McBride. And I think it's interesting that this process is also bringing me closer to my siblings. That based on our upbringing, we've got a bit of estrangement going on because of the dysfunction that we grew up in. And now we're finding our way back to each other, connecting, staying connected. In my case, reconnecting. And all because we share the same last name. So names have a way of bringing us back to ourselves, back to our centers and our cores. Now the process is still ongoing for me. I have a bit more steps to do that are mostly dictated by offices being opened or closed or available, and that will be coming. But I want to talk right now a little bit about the history of name changing, because I think that will give us some context. So women have been taking their husband's name upon marriage, and that's for centuries. And that's rooted in common English law. This tradition, which has its roots back to the 9th century, led to women losing their maiden names and becoming legally considered under their husband's name at the time of marriage. Now, while the practice was common and often legally mandated, in the 1970s we saw a push towards women's rights and more flexibility in name choices, leading to a gradual shift in legal and social norms. In America, for example, in the United States, the tradition of women adopting their husband's surname remains prevalent. According to the 2023 Pew Research Center survey, 79% of women in opposite-sex marriages took their husband's last name. 79%. 14% retained their maiden name, and only 5% opted for a hyphenation. Demographic factors influence this. Now, education plays a role in them. 26% of women with postgraduate degrees tend to retain their maiden names versus 13% with a bachelor's degree and only 11% with some college or less than that. A political affiliation is another factor, with Democratic or Democratic-leaning women twice as likely than their Republican counterparts to keep their maiden names. Now, how about globally? Here's some interesting trends. Japan legally mandates a shared surname for married couples. How progressive, with 96% of women adopting their husband's name. Quebec, Canada. Since 1981, women are legally required to retain their maiden names after marriage. Go Canada. Greece enacted a law in 1983 mandating women to keep their maiden names post-marriage. Love the Greeks. France, Belgium, and the Netherlands, traditionally women retain their maiden names with legal systems supporting this practice. Very strong women there. Korea and Malaysia, cultural norms dictate that women keep their maiden names after marriage. Since 2014, women can legally retain only their maiden names after marriage. Some incredible trends that we could probably learn from in the United States. Now, what about reverting after separation, changing your name back? While comprehensive statistics on women changing their names back to their maiden names post-divorce are limited, it's common for women to resume their birth names after separation, like I'm doing. In the United States, this process typically involves a legal name change, which can be addressed during divorce proceedings. In my case, I had to have my attorney create paperwork that would legally change my name. And it had to be done in duplicate and triplicate, and how many times I need to get it done because every different office needs a different form. So you want to change your names 5 or 6 times, meaning banks, license, passports, etc., birth certificates. You need to have that many copies of the form, and they all have to be notarized. It's quite a process. Factors influencing decisions include professional identity, personal preference, and administrative considerations. It's complicated. You gotta really want to do it. It needs to be a personal choice. In a lot of cases, professional situations might dictate it. The factors that influence decisions to change your name back or change your name at all when you get married generally include professional identity, personal preference, and administrative considerations. Changing your name when you get married is probably the easiest paperwork to file. Changing your name back to your maiden name post-divorce is a hassle. There's a lot to go through. My situation isn't unique. I've been working on this for quite some time, and I have had conversations with many women that have had to do the same. It is interesting to me that no one ever mentioned this to me when I was getting married, to think about that. What about your career, about your life, about your identity? It was just assumed that I was going to become a we and share the name of my husband. And I didn't understand or appreciate what that meant to my self-esteem, to my professional career, to all the opportunities that I had hopes and dreams of when I was younger. It just complicates it. I'm not suggesting that anyone needs to hold on to their maiden name if they want to change the name to their husband. I just think you ought to consider what it means and what it might do. I have a lot of friends who have professional careers in either politics or celebrity or in front of the camera, behind the camera, doing things in that capacity, that chose to keep their maiden name for consistency because they began their career early in life and they got married a little bit after that. I, on the other hand, didn't launch my career till well after I got married. And by that point, I had already adopted my ex-husband's name. And so I just went with that. So therefore, changing it back affects my professional identity. And yet it's not impossible to do it. It's just complicated. That's all I'm saying. I have sisters who use their maiden name for professional purposes, and yet their legal name still has their husband's name in it, so it's possible to do that too. Luckily, in today's day and age, it is not so difficult to represent yourself from your origin, yet legally, it's important that you define it all the way through. In my case, to be very specific, it was important to me to change my name back post-divorce because as you move forward in your life, I wanted to be known for who I always have been, Anna McBride. That's how I came into this world, and that's how I want to leave it.